The girl was flying first class for the very first time, yet she had no idea that she had fallen asleep on a stranger's shoulder, never knowing that this moment was about to change her life forever.
As much as I'd love a beautiful girl drooling on my shoulder, you better buckle up.
The girl's name was Finley, and she had once been a brilliantly gifted violinist, but after the accidental death of her brother, she lost all desire to perform, failed one exam after another, and was ultimately dismissed from the academy. So, in order to calm her tangled emotions, a heartbroken and restless Finley followed her mother's advice and flew to the city where her brother had lived before he passed away. But what she never expected was that the man whose shoulder she had absent-mindedly leaned on turned out to be the international superstar Beckett.
Beckett, Rush.
She got this far without being bothered, all right?
Finley was instantly stunned, but Beckett didn't think much of it at all, and instead smugly assumed that Finley was one of his fans, boldly claiming that if she gave him a sweet kiss, he would give her an autograph. That immediately made Finley furious, and she directly snapped at him, calling him a proud and self-important idiot. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of the bond between them, and soon, after the plane landed, Finley, who had clashed with Beckett the entire flight, saw him being surrounded by a crowd of frenzied fans, turned away with disdain, and felt absolutely nothing for the man everyone else seemed to see as perfect. What she never could have imagined was that just when she thought she would never cross paths with him again, an unexpected twist suddenly appeared. While helping her host family run their inn and bringing food to a guest, she unexpectedly ran into him once again.
Good morning to you as well. You didn't spit in my food, did you?
What are you doing here?
What does it look like? I'm a guest.
It turned out that in order to avoid being followed by paparazzi, Beckett had deliberately chosen this remote inn, and as a result, the two of them, who already disliked each other, once again began trading sarcastic remarks. Even so,
I'll see you later, Frankie.
It's Finley, but good try.
After learning Beckett's true identity, the Callahan family, who ran the inn, all silently agreed to keep his secret, and Beckett's new film was already being prepared at full speed, with production officially underway. However, to everyone's disappointment, Beckett's awkward acting never managed to earn the director's approval, and the director even angrily threw down the microphone and gave him a final warning. If he kept going like this, the investors would have no choice but to consider replacing him. That instantly sent Beckett crashing to the lowest point. So, seeing his career hanging by a thread and desperately needing someone to help him, Beckett ended up going to find Finley.
I'm about to ask you a favor.
I'm about to say no.
And I'm about to ignore that. How could you say no to this face?
Who was staying upstairs from him. Finley was completely speechless, and thought the man in front of her had to be out of his mind, but Beckett said he only wanted her help practicing lines. Yet Finley had no desire to get involved with a superstar like him, and immediately refused him once again. Beckett, however, didn't care in the slightest, and despite her objections, barged straight into Finley's bedroom, only to unexpectedly discover a mysterious painting.
I did not say you could come in.
Why? Are all your deepest, darkest secrets in here?
No. This is my brother's from when he spent time here.
It turned out that this painting had been made by Finley's late brother, and Finley's name was still written on it, while the secret hidden inside it was the very reason she had traveled all this way. But the moment he heard that, Beckett froze, and having once gone through the pain of losing a loved one himself, he seemed to instantly feel a connection with Finley, so he told Finley that death is not the end, forgetting is. The people we lose will always stay beside us in another way. And it was those very words that completely touched the deepest part of Finley's heart. So after hesitating again and again, Finley finally agreed to Beckett's request. But what neither of them expected was that those lines about love and longing felt almost like some ancient spell, causing an unexplainable spark to quietly grow between them. And so, in that intimate atmosphere, the two young people found themselves being drawn toward each other. However, just when Finley thought something was finally about to happen, the very next second changed everything.
How was that?
Finley immediately snapped back to her senses, and couldn't help mocking herself for being such a fool, wondering how she could possibly have hoped that something might happen between her and a man like him. So a few days later, when Beckett invited her again, she firmly turned him down, and instead threw herself completely into unraveling the mystery of that strange painting, because among everything her brother had ever made by hand, this was the only cross with her name written on it. And that made Finley realize that this painting had to carry a very special meaning. So in order to uncover the secret hidden inside it, Finley had no choice but to drag her friend along and search through graveyards all across Ireland. But what she never expected was that on this very day, she would unexpectedly run into Beckett.
I was actually looking for that cross.
Oh, you're not gonna find it here.
How do you know?
Because I already checked.
Who had come for the exact same reason, and only then did Finley realize that Beckett had never once given up on helping her. At that moment, Beckett also proposed that he would help Finley find the truth, but in return, Finley would help him rehearse his lines. And so, with different motives in mind, these two young people ultimately chose to work together in order to reach their own goals. Beckett even took Finley to the Mahar Cliffs she had been longing to see. But unexpectedly, even though Beckett had done everything he could to hide himself, a group of fans still noticed something suspicious. So when it became clear that Beckett's disguise was about to be exposed, quick-thinking Finley suddenly came up with an unexpected solution.
I still love you. What did she say?
Well, Franny, my dear, don't you think we ought to get married? I think it's only right after you gave me those twins at the ripe young age of 16.
I'm an unwed mother.
I'm a deceased baby, Daddy. What do you want from me?
She directly grabbed Beckett's arm and held it close. Hearing that, the fans immediately assumed they had mistaken him for someone else. And in the end, the two of them managed to avoid being disturbed, while the moment also quietly brought them closer together. So Beckett bluntly told Finley that he never really liked being a star at all, although it had allowed him to accumulate an enormous fortune at a very young age. None of it was the life he actually wanted, because what he truly wanted was to be like Finley, an ordinary person who could freely choose her own life, instead of trading his precious youth for a life covered in cold, lifeless glamour.
I bet those birds don't regret anything, though. They're just free. I don't know, I guess sometimes I just miss blending in. Being normal, you know?
So when Finley heard those heartfelt words, she immediately reached up and removed the hat Beckett had been using as part of his disguise, and told him that this was the real him, the version of him that did not need to hide. That instantly made Beckett look at her with gratitude in his eyes. At that moment, the sea breeze brushed softly across them, like the arms of a lover, stirring the hearts of the young man and woman. But as if to prove everything Beckett had said, when the two of them returned home, Finley unexpectedly ran into Beckett's manager, and only then did she learn that the man was actually Beckett's father. Yet he showed none of the awareness a father should have had, and instead treated Beckett like a machine, arranging every part of his work for him, even forcing him to sign on for the next superhero film without caring what Beckett wanted at all.
I mean, I want to do something more than just sword fighting and...
That's what the fans want to see, right? Isn't that right?
Beckett gave a slight pause when he heard that, but years of habit once again made him submit to his father's arrangement. Even so, he still did not want Finley to become a bird trapped inside a cage the way he had. So when night finally came, just as Finley was feeling miserable over everything on her mind, a sudden rush of knocking at the door caught her attention. It was Beckett. Ignoring Finley's protests, he casually tossed her violin aside and declared that he was taking her to a mysterious place. But after hearing that, Finley refused without the slightest hesitation, because she did not believe Beckett could possibly have come up with any good idea, never realizing the good intention behind it. And so,
Hey, as your tour guide, it's my job to make sure you don't spend all of your time in Ireland cooped up in this room. It's what you find outside of this place that's gonna help you write your tryout song.
the two of them arrived at a noisy tavern. Beckett greeted the landlady with the ease of someone very familiar with the place, and just like always, bought a round for every customer there, and the landlady, just as skillfully, immediately sealed off every exit, creating a completely private space for Beckett. But Beckett went straight to a down-and-out old man, the only violinist in the town, Seamus. He hoped Seamus could offer Finley some help. At first, Finley didn't take it seriously at all, and she didn't believe that an old man whose hands could barely manage basic daily life could truly change anything. But the old man told Finley not to treat the violin in her hands as just an instrument, and instead to imagine it as anything she wanted it to be. So, encouraged by everyone's enthusiastic invitation, Finley stepped onto the stage with hesitation and doubt, yet her proper and restrained playing sounded like a statue in a grand hall, elegant but lacking soul, stiff and lifeless. So Seamus spoke to Finley. At that moment,
Not in an orchestra. Enjoy yourself. It doesn't matter what your fingers or the notes are. It's how you play them.
Finley immediately understood everyone's intention, and she followed the old man's guidance and began to play once again. This time, countless dancing notes felt like lively spirits leaping across the strings, instantly becoming vivid and full of life. There were no judges, and there was no test. There was only life bursting out through freedom, allowing Finley to feel the joy of music for the very first time, until the piece came to an end. Afterward, she danced freely with Beckett, and thanked him for everything he had done for her. But the gap between their identities felt as distant as heaven and earth. Even so,
Actually, not so bad when you decide to have some fun.
You're not so bad yourself. Definitely not.
I couldn't possibly be a good guy.
And I'm trying to be a good girl.
And we don't even like each other.
We're just too different.
It would never work.
The two of them couldn't resist and shared a kiss, as if in the noisy tavern. Only the sound of their heartbeats remained. However, Beckett did not want to expose Finley to the media spotlight, yet this instantly made Finley think that he was trying to distance himself from her. So she jokingly told Beckett that it was just a meaningless kiss, and without waiting for his explanation, she turned and walked away. Unbeknownst to them, a crisis for the two of them was already quietly approaching. As the two of them grew closer and closer, Beckett spent nearly every moment by Finley's side, and together they laughed, played, and left the footprints of their youth across those beautiful days, as if the whole world had turned into one giant amusement park, adding a dazzling splash of color to what had once been a dull and monotonous life. And with Finley's help, Beckett's acting also improved, to the point that even the director who had once looked down on him could not help but see him in a new light. But this also made Beckett's father see a business opportunity. So he went to Beckett and proposed stirring up romance rumors between him and the actress Taylor in order to build hype for the next film. What he did not expect, however, was that his son, who had always obeyed him without resistance,
Your movie sales spiked 5%. You should be thanking me.
chose to refuse this time. Even so, his father's interference still put enormous pressure on Beckett, and even his time with Finley began to carry a trace of heaviness. Finley said nothing, because no one understood Beckett's pressure and loneliness better than she did. What she did not expect, however, was that Beckett's father would suddenly appear at that moment, deliberately send Beckett away, and then catch up with Finley just as she was about to leave. He told Finley that Beckett and Taylor were the ones who should be seen by the world as a perfect couple, not Beckett and some ordinary girl from a small town. And if she truly liked Beckett, then she should not stand in the way of his future. In an instant, the flame of love that had just begun to burn in Finley's heart was immediately extinguished, especially when she saw Beckett together with Taylor. That sense of loss became even stronger. Only then did she realize that the gap in identity and status between them was far beyond anything feelings alone could ever make up for. So, in order not to hold Beckett back, Finley gradually began to distance herself from him, while juggling her school troubles and volunteering at a nursing home. It was as if only those endless, complicated tasks could help her temporarily forget these painful thoughts, and keep her from stepping into the emotional entanglement surrounding Beckett any longer. But Beckett could not hold himself back, and once again came looking for her. In the end, Finley still stopped, but her words and her thoughts were filled with all those rumors online about Beckett and Taylor. And at last, Beckett finally told her the truth. Those stories in the news about him being with Taylor were fake rumors created by his father and the team for Publicity. Finley immediately fell silent, because she was no longer sure whether she should continue a relationship that perhaps was destined to have no ending. Yet at that very moment, Beckett showed a courage he had never displayed before, and firmly invited Finley to attend the town's annual dance with him.
No disguises?
No disguise is needed, although I am pretty good at them.
Finley was instantly stunned, because she understood very clearly what that would mean for Beckett. But in Beckett's eyes, she saw a determination she had never seen before, and so she finally let go of every knot in her heart, and followed Beckett to the dance. At that moment, their eyes were like beacons in the darkness, able to become each other's light even in the most hopeless night. And Beckett finally broke the chains that had bound him for so many years. And when he looked at Finley on the stage, his gaze burned with overwhelming passion, until the arrival of a calculating woman.
I'm surprised to see you here without Taylor.
Yeah, I couldn't believe my luck when Finley said yes. She's pretty talented, wouldn't you agree?
She was instantly stunned, because the tenderness in Beckett's voice was so obvious that even a deaf person could have heard it. So when Beckett had no attention to spare for her, she turned away in bitter resentment. But in her heart, she had already prepared a deadly trap for the two of them. Soon, after Finley finished her piece, she returned once more to Beckett's side, and at that moment, Beckett finally spoke of his wish.
There's one thing I haven't done yet.
What's that?
Kiss a beautiful fiddler under a starry Irish night.
Well, too bad I played the violin.
Close enough.
So they ignored the eyes of the world and kissed each other with complete abandon. But what they never could have imagined was that such a warm and sweet moment would be secretly captured by that jealous woman, who then sent the photo to every major media outlet, like a giant stone thrown into a calm lake. Sure enough, a swarm of reporters came rushing in like shadows that could not be shaken off. Although Beckett tried his best to protect Finley, It was only after they got home that he was shocked to discover that his father and Taylor had already been waiting there for a long time, but their completely different beliefs made it impossible for father and son to truly communicate. His father told Beckett that he would do everything he could to turn the situation around and build him a wild yet likable public image, and that all Beckett needed to do was claim that Finley was nothing more than a stranger he had happened to meet. But that overbearing decision immediately sparked Finley's anger.
How can you do this to him? That's not who he is.
And how long have you known him?
You need to be quiet and step away from things you know nothing about.
What Finley never could have imagined, however, was that this time, Beckett once again chose to stand on the same side as his father and Taylor. With a cold expression, he told Finley that maybe Taylor and his father were right, and that Finley would never be able to understand his life. That instantly shattered Finley's heart, and she angrily called Beckett a coward with no courage, then turned and walked away without looking back. But the story was far from over, because after Mrs. Callahan drove away the reporters who had rushed over with a broom in hand, Beckett no longer had the face to remain there, so he apologized to the Callahan parents, but said nothing at all about Finley, and turned away to throw himself back into the tense and orderly filming schedule. His father told Beckett that every single person on the set represented a family, and that all of them were working hard because of him. So if Beckett chose to walk away, then they would lose their livelihoods as well. That instantly made Beckett's heart grow heavy again, because how could he not understand that truth? So he could only wait until his father was not paying attention, and once again went to find Finley. He apologized to Finley for what had happened that night, and explained that the only reason he had acted that way was to protect her from being disturbed by the media. But Finley had already completely given up on Beckett, because she could not hide her burning love inside a shadow that was never allowed into the light. So she told Beckett that she had once believed true love could overcome everything, but now she had realized that the gap in identity and status between them was far beyond anything feelings alone could ever repair. So no matter how Beckett pleaded, Finley still resolutely walked away. But the wheels of fate never stopped turning for anyone. The two people who had once loved each other so deeply now seemed to drift farther and farther apart along their own separate paths. But films are always merciful, and they always arrange the best ending for everyone in the most complete way. That day, while working as a caregiver at the nursing home, Finley decided to fulfill an old woman's dying wish to reconcile with her sister, and resolutely got on her bicycle and rode toward the sister's house dozens of miles away. But the heavy rain blocked her path. So, thinking of the old woman's life that could slip away at any moment, Finley had no choice but to call Beckett. Even so, Beckett still agreed to Finley's request, and accompanied her to the old woman's sister's house. But things turned out to be unexpectedly difficult. It turned out that for decades, the younger sister had always believed that her sister had taken her fiancé away, never knowing that the man was actually a deeply disturbed person, and that the only reason her sister did it was to protect her. But even so,
how am I supposed to believe all this?
Kathleen begged your father to drop the arrangement, but he was in too much debt and Charles was too dangerous to cross.
decades of resentment still made it impossible for the old woman to forgive her sister's actions, and she refused to see her one last time, turning and leaving. Yet Finley's actions deeply moved Beckett, who had been hesitating all along. So after returning home, when the actress Taylor took the initiative to get closer to him, he couldn't help but ask her a question.
Would you ride your bike in the pouring rain just to help an old lady?
Of course. But I wouldn't need to. Just hire a driver.
Hearing this, Beckett paused slightly, and he suddenly realized that some actions that seemed reckless and foolish could actually be far more touching than calculated cleverness. So he quietly made a bold decision in his heart and went to find his father. In a firm and unquestionable tone, he told him that for the next 6 months, he would shoot a film, and all the income would be used as severance pay for the team. This immediately met with his father's opposition.
I have to warn you that this is the most asinine thing you've ever done.
But Beckett didn't care at all, and he told his father that what he needed now was a real father, not a manager, then turned and walked away without looking back. Yet his father silently accepted the decision, as if the child who had once lived under his protection had finally developed his own will. However, the day of parting still arrived. Because she was preparing to take the entrance exam for the music academy again, Finley, accompanied by the Callahan family, came to the airport, ready to leave this place she had grown so attached to, and on that day, there was neither wind nor rain, as if true farewells were always silent, without a sound. But just when she thought everything had come to an end, a phone call suddenly broke the calm.
Did her sister ever come? So she's all alone.
Finley was instantly stunned, and a wave of overwhelming sorrow surged through her, pushing her to make a shocking decision.
I have to go back.
It turned out that the old woman she had been caring for had finally reached the end of her life, so she gave up the exam that meant so much to her, and returned once again to the old woman's side. She quietly leaned against the old woman's shoulder, feeling sorrow for the unfairness of her life. But fortunately, before the old woman passed away, her sister finally let go of all her resentment and came to her side.
Kathleen, your sister's here.
So when she heard Finley's words, the old woman, who had been on the brink, opened her eyes once more, and after clearing up decades of misunderstanding with her sister, left the world with a satisfied smile, a world where she had once cried and once laughed. Fortunately, after saying goodbye to the old woman, there were still those warm companions around Finley, enough to heal the sadness in her heart. But what she did not expect was that the very next day, she received a mysterious address that immediately made her realize something. So she followed the directions and arrived at a dilapidated cemetery, where she finally saw the thing she had been longing for. It turned out to be the clue hidden within her brother's painting. At that moment, the sunlight finally broke through the gloom. Finley finally understood that perhaps the darkness before dawn is the prelude to the light, and that the future shines like the stars. So there is no need to remain trapped in the small pond of the past, just like what was written on the gravestone. Those words her brother had never been able to say to her. So in that moment, Finley finally let go of herself, and no longer clung to her brother's death. After all, on this path, she had already exhausted so much of herself. So with a heart full of apology, she once again went to find Beckett, who had been waiting for her all along. And when Finley heard what he said,
I went to that cemetery.
Sorry it took me so long. I had to search everyone within 100 miles of here.
I guess I was wrong. Maybe I can trust you.
Well, you still look gorgeous when you admit that you're wrong.
she immediately burst into laughter. In the end, the two young people who loved each other still found their way back together. But life is not a movie, and happiness comes from cherishing what you have. May we give our whole heart to one person, and spend the rest of our lives with generosity. Stay strong, my friend.